The background of Islam, the Semitic race. Of the human races that contributed to the ancient civilization of the world, the Semitic race was one of them. The Semites occupied a special place in the history of mankind. Musa, the founder of Judaism, Isa, the founder of Christianity, and Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, were the sons of this Semitic race, and the East was their homeland. Of these monotheistic religions, Islam is the third and the last. Arabia, the birthplace of Islam, was the original home of the Semitic race. In course of time, the Semitic people migrated to different parts of the Fertile Crescent and became known as the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Phoenicians, and the Hebrews, Jews, in history. The ancestors of these people must have lived here for some times as one people before they became differentiated. About 3500 BC, one of the branches of the Semitic race left their original home and settled permanently on the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, which had been populated by a highly civilized community, the Sumerians. As a result of their close association with the Sumerians, there flourished a great civilization. With the conquest of Persia by the Greek hero Alexander, the Eastern civilization entered Europe, and the Greeks developed it in various ways. There grew up a new civilization out of this Eastern and Western culture. The new civilization is called the Hellenic civilization. When the Romans conquered Greece, 146 BC, they became the heirs of, in the 7th century, the Hellenic civilization. AD, the Muslims conquered Persia and Rome, and they, by virtue of their conquest, became the heirs of these civilizations. So it is necessary to know the civilizations of these countries before we study the history of the Arabs. Babylon and Babylonian civilization. The fertile region that lies between the two great rivers, Tigris and Euphrates, is called Mesopotamia. In ancient times, the northern part of Mesopotamia was called Assyria, and the southern part was known as Babylonia. The southern or lower part was very fertile, and as a result, there grew plenty of crops. Long before the birth of Jesus Christ, there lived a civilized nation in this region. Babylonia was divided into a number of petty independent city-states. Each city-state had its own god and was ruled by a prince bearing the title king or lord. These city-states were always at war with one another for political supremacy. The Akkadians, after the name of their capital, Akkadu, were the first of the Semitic peoples who came and settled in the southern part of Mesopotamia. The founder of the dynasty of Akkad was the famous Sargon-Tar, about 2800 BC, whose reign formed a great landmark in the history of early Babylonia and united the whole valley under his scepter. He is said to have conquered Syria, the land of the setting sun. Under his rule, the state took on a systematic and centralized organization, which was to serve as a model for the future states. The Amorites were the second group of the Semitic peoples who came from Syria and established their supremacy over the Euphrates Valley under the leadership of Hammurabi. Hammurabi, 2123 to 2081 BC, was the greatest ruler of Old Babylonia and one of the greatest rulers of the ancient world. By wars and conquests, he enhanced the power and prestige of his empire. He united the whole valley, that is, Akkad and Sumeru, and renamed it as Babylon. Hammurabi was a great administrator and a legislator. He collected and codified the laws of ancient Babylonia. In 1901 to 1902 AD, M.D. Morgan, a French archaeologist, discovered at a place named Susa a block of stone upon which was inscribed the Code of Laws set up by Hammurabi. It is known as the Code of Hammurabi. The Code of Hammurabi is perhaps the oldest and the most notable set of laws that had yet been made and obeyed in the world. It deals with laws regarding rights and duties of all classes of people which made up the population of the Babylonian Empire. The principal punishment in the code was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The Code of Hammurabi greatly influenced the Roman laws, and the modern European laws have been constituted on the basis of the Roman laws. On the death of Hammurabi, the political history of Babylon became very obscure. Several tribes came and established political supremacy in the valley. At last, the whole of Babylonia was conquered by the Assyrians in the 8th century BC. On the fall of the Assyrians, Babylonia again rose to power and prominence under the Chaldean or New Babylonian dynasty, 625–538 BC. Nabopolassar, 625–605, was the founder of this new dynasty. Nebuchadnezzar, son of Nabopolassar, was the greatest ruler of this dynasty. It was under him that Babylon recovered her ancient splendor. He carried his conquest to the borders of Egypt, defeated the Hebrew king of Judah, and ruthlessly destroyed Jerusalem in 586 BC. The beautiful gardens which he caused to be made on the roof of the imperial palace for the pleasure of his wife were the famous Hanging Gardens. By the middle of the 6th century BC, the new Babylonian or Chaldean Empire fell into the hands of the Persians. In the history of civilization, the contribution of ancient Babylonia was no doubt a great one. The Babylonians were expert and skillful in agriculture. They excavated canals to irrigate lands in times of drought and made dikes to protect crops against flood. In industry and commerce, they also made much progress. The Babylonian merchants discovered a new system of keeping accounts, and a system of fixed weight and measure was prevalent among them. The people of antiquity derived their system of measure and weight from those merchants. For a period of nearly 2,000 years, Babylonia had been the center of trade and commerce in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. The Babylonians were the worshippers of many gods, namely nature gods, local city deities, and a group of lesser gods. Marduk was their chief god, and Ishtar was their god of love. The main feature of their religion was a belief in spirits, particularly in evil spirits. Another feature of their religion was the foretelling of events by the movement of the planets and stars. The Chaldean astrologers acquired proficiency in astrology, and they were famous throughout the ancient world. There was a new system of writings prevalent in Babylonia. It is called the cuneiform system of writings on account of its wedge-shaped characters. It is considered to be a more developed system than the picture writing in ancient Egypt. The Babylonians used 400 or 500 syllable signs. Nothing is known about the use of paper. The writing material of the Babylonians, says Myers, was usually clay tablets of various sizes. In the field of sciences, the Babylonians made much progress. In astronomy, they made greater advance than the Egyptians. Their knowledge of the heavens came about from their interest as astrologers in the stars. The Babylonians divided the zodiac into 12 signs and named its constellations. They could foretell the eclipses of the sun and the moon. It was Babylonian astronomers who invented the sundial and the water clock. They used the calendar, which was far more advanced than that of the Egyptians. They divided the year into 12 months, the day and night into hours, and hours into minutes, and invented the 7-day week. In mathematics, they made original contributions. They invented the decimal system in numbers, and it is from them that the system has come to the modern world. Assyria and Assyrian civilization. The next group of the Semitic peoples who established their rule over the northern region of Mesopotamian Valley were the Assyrians. The history of Assyria, says Myers, is in the main a story of the Assyrian kings. Through blood and cruelty, the Assyrian kings conquered country after country and established a powerful empire. Because of their cruelty, they were called the scourge of antiquity. They made war for pillage and massacre of human life, and they found special pleasure in it. Sargon, too, 722, 705 BC, was one of these cruel kings. He was a great conqueror. He captured Samaria, 722 BC, the capital of the kingdom of Israel, and carried away as captives the most influential men of the 10 tribes. These captives are known as the lost 10 tribes because nothing was heard of them anymore. Sennacherib, 705, 681 BC, son of Sargon, was also a great conqueror. He conquered Babylonia and subjugated Palestine and Egypt. Ashurbanipal, 668 to 626 BC, was the greatest king of Assyria. Almost the whole of Western Asia acknowledged his authority. On his death, the Assyrian Empire began to decline rapidly. In 612 BC, Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, was attacked and completely sacked by the Aryan Medes of Persia. Thus, the Assyrian Empire came to an end. The Assyrian culture was greatly influenced by the Babylonian culture. The chief characteristic of this culture was that, though it was indebted to others for their civilization, the Assyrian culture spread to the whole civilized world. But the Assyrians were not mere imitators. In sculpture, architecture, and paintings, they made original contributions. Sennacherib was a great builder. He rebuilt the ancient capital, Nineveh, and adorned it so beautifully that it looked like the sun. Some of the Assyrian monarchs were patrons of learnings and literature. Himself a great scholar, Ashurbanipal collected a great library containing rare books. It is considered as the largest and most important library of the Semitic world. The Assyrians have been called the Romans of Asia. Like the Romans, the Assyrians built up a vast empire by a series of campaigns and conquests. Before them, no people established so vast an empire, as the Romans derived their culture and civilization from the conquered Greece, and then developed and diffused it throughout the world. Similarly, the Assyrians borrowed the main features of their culture and civilization from the conquered Babylonia, and then developed and spread it throughout her vast empire. The Assyrians also, like the Romans, introduced a centralized system of administration. The provinces were administered by the governors who were directly responsible to the emperor. The Assyrians constructed a number of roads and thereby kept the capital in touch with different parts of the empire. The Hebrews. Of the other Semitic peoples who established their supremacy over Syria and Palestine, the Phoenicians, the Aramaeans, and the Hebrews were the most prominent. The Hebrews, or Jews, claimed Abraham as their ancestor. They were originally nomads who had left the Arabian desert in search of a land and ultimately came to settle in Canaan, later called Palestine. Hebrews founded a kingdom of their own under the leadership of David, son of Jesse of the tribe of Judah. It was under his son and successor, Solomon, in 961 and 922 BC, that the Hebrew kingdom reached the pinnacle of its glory. Solomon did many beneficial works for the country. He adorned Jerusalem, the capital of the Hebrews, with magnificent buildings. He was a liberal patron of art, commerce, and learning. But after his death, the Hebrew kingdom was divided into 2 parts, namely, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. The Assyrians conquered the kingdom of Israel in 722 BC, and the kingdom of Judah was conquered by the Chaldean king Nebuchadnezzar in 586 BC. The contributions of the Hebrews were not important in the domain of arts and science. The Old Testament, out of which the New Testament arose, was a unique literature of the Hebrews. But the Hebrews made great contributions in the field of religion. While their neighbors worshipped many gods and goddesses, they believed in the oneness of God. They also developed a high moral code, bodied in the 10 Commandments, which their God Jehovah dedicated to Moses on Mount Sinai. It was the Hebrew monotheism which preceded Christianity and Islam, two great religions of the world. The Byzantine Empire. On the eve of the rise of Islam, the two mighty powers, the Byzantine Empire and the Sasanian Empire, were ruling over the territories of the Near and Middle East. The Eastern Roman Empire was called the Byzantine Empire. It consisted of Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and a part of Europe. Byzantium was Greek city on the Bosporus, and the Byzantine was named after the city. It was made the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire in 327 A.D. by Constantine the Great. But soon it was named Constantinople after his name. The history of the Byzantine Empire must begin with the era of Constantine. Constantine was followed by more than 70 rulers who graced the imperial throne of Constantinople before its fall in 1204. Theodosius and Thesea 379-395, who came to power in 379 A.D., made Christianity the official religion of the empire. Theodosius XI, 408-450, was the next important ruler of the Roman Empire. He constructed the storied land walls of Constantinople. Justinian, 527-565, came to the throne of the Eastern Roman Empire in 527 A.D. He was a man of unusual ability and rare genius. He tried to restore the Roman Empire to its ancient glory, and with this end in view, he undertook ambitious schemes of conquest. But the chief achievement of his reign was the collection and publication of the body of the Roman law. This work embodied all the law knowledge of the ancient Romans, was the most precious legacy of Rome, the world. Asterisk Justinian was one of the greatest builders in the world. He founded a university and rebuilt the Church of St. Sophia, which had been built by Constantine the Great. Heraclius, 610 and 641, was the next gifted emperor of the Roman Empire. He is often called the creator of the medieval Byzantine period. It was under him that Greek became the official language of the empire. On his accession, he found the empire in a disturbed and debilitated condition. The very existence of the empire was threatened by the slaves and the Sasanians. He defeated the Iranians in a series of brilliant campaigns and freed Syria and Egypt from Sasanian control. However, the financial strain of these wars left him unable to meet the Muslims in a favorable posture, and the recovered provinces were lost to them during the last days of Heraclius. Christianity is one of the greatest religions of the world. It owes its rise to Jesus of Nazareth. At the age of 30, Jesus Christ appeared in public in the reign of Tiberius at Antioch in Syria, where his teachings were first preached by St. Paul. His followers were first called Christians as though a term of reproach. It was due to the efforts of St. Paul that Christianity spread from Asia Minor to Greece and Rome. In spite of the opposition made by some of the Roman emperors, namely Nero and Diocletian, the Christians began to draw the attention of the state. With the accession of Constantine, Christianity achieved a great success in Rome. He gave legal recognition to the new faith and made it a state religion. Most of the Roman emperors were good administrators. The Roman system of administration, as established by Augustus, was theoretically a restoration of the old republic, but in reality was an absolute monarchy under the guise of the republican form of government. By his assumption of proconsular command and tribunician powers, Augustus became all in Rome and in the provinces. He divided the provinces into two classes, imperial and senatorial. The imperial provinces were administered by governors who were directly responsible to the emperor. The senatorial provinces were governed by governors appointed by the Senate. With the accession of Diocletian, the old names of the republic, the consuls, the tribunes, Even the Senate itself had by this time lost all political significance. The emperor became virtually a despot. The Sasanian Empire. It was probably before 1500 BC that some Aryan tribes came to settle on the plateau of western Iran. The immigrants that settled in the south, near the Persian Gulf, became known as Persians, while those that took possession of the mountain regions of the northwest were called Medes. In 539 BC, the Chaldean Empire was overthrown by the Medes and Persians under their king Cyrus. With the fall of Babylon, the power passed from the Semitics to the Aryans, who were henceforth destined to shape the main course of events. Cyrus was followed by his son, Cambyses, who added Egypt to his empire. After him, Darius, 521-484 BC, who ascended the throne in 521 BC, was the greatest of the ancient Persian kings. The powers of Persian monarchy passed away with the reign of Xerxes, son and successor of Darius. In 334 BC, Alexander the Great invaded the Persian Empire and put an end to Persian rule by inflicting a crushing defeat on the reigning ruler Xerxes. The Sasanian Empire, which marked an epoch in the history of Persia, came into being in 226 AD as a result of a national revolt led by Ardashir against the Greek Parthian rule. Ardashir, son of Papak of Fars, was a vassal king who revolted against his sovereign, Ardawan, and captured the conterminous province of Karman. At this, Ardawan invaded Fars and attacked his vassal, but he was defeated by the latter. In 226 AD, the final battle was fought on the plain of Hormuz, in which the Parthian army was completely defeated and Ardawan was killed. The Battle of Hormuz laid the foundation of the Sasanian dynasty, which ruled over Persia for 4 centuries. Ardashir, the founder of the Sasanian dynasty, was a great conqueror and a ruler. He aimed at establishing a centralized government. He maintained a strong standing army and kept it under the command of officials who were independent of the satraps. Under him, the ancient Persian religion of Zoroaster was revived. Ardashir was succeeded by his son, Shapur-Dameh, in 240 AD. Shapur was a great soldier and a successful administrator. His sculptures and other buildings, which he founded at Schuster and elsewhere, prove his devotion to arts of peace. After him, the Sasanian dynasty produced a series of relatively weak monarchs. Shapur the Great, who ascended the throne in 309 AD, was one of the illustrious rulers of this dynasty. He had an exceptionally long and successful reign, 309-379 AD. Shapur the Great had to fight long with the Romans for the glory of his dynasty. Sir Percy Sykes says, "The manner in which he conducted the long fight with Rome to regain the 5 provinces lost by his grandfather Narses and to secure possession of Nisibis, a struggle which he kept free from disaster, proves that he possessed not only military talent of a high order, but also a tenacity of purpose that was lacking in many members of the dynasty." His campaigns against the Huns further speak of his military and diplomatic achievement. The most illustrious monarch of this dynasty was Naushirwan the Just, who was a contemporary of Justinian. He ascended the throne of Persia in 531 AD. He was a great general and conqueror, but his fame rests chiefly on the organization of civil administration. He took steps to eradicate the evils that pervaded the administration of the empire. His organization of land tax, his improvement in irrigation and communication, and his creation of a standing army bear testimony to his genius as a great administrator. He was famous for his justice. Himself a devotee of knowledge, Naushirwan was also a great patron of learning. Khusra Parviz, son of Hormizdas and grandson of Naushirwan, was the last great king of the Sasanian dynasty. He came to throne in 590 AD and was a contemporary of the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius. No monarch, says Sykes, looms larger in Persian literature and art than Khusrau Parviz, who was famous alike for his power, his magnificence, his treasures, his love for his Christian wife, the beauteous Shirin, and his deep affection for his black horse, Shabdiz. In his early life, Khusrau Parviz was brave and courageous, but in his old age he was tyrannical and vindictive. When the Prophet of Islam sent a messenger with a letter to him, he tore up the letter and drove the messenger out of his court. But it was during the reign of Yazdegerd III, 634-652, that the Persian Empire was overthrown by the Arabs. The religion of the Persians was Zoroastrianism. The religion of Zoroaster contributed more than any other ancient heathen religion to the culture of the world. It was not only the religion of the Persians, but it also left a profound impression on the religions of the Jews and the Christians. The idea of Judaism and Christianity that good and evil are equal and permanent adversaries is probably derived from Zoroastrianism.